Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The glass didn't hit the floor right away. It slipped from her hand like time had slowed down, twirling once mid-air before shattering near her heels. Everyone turned, not because of the sound, but because of the look on her face. Frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, like a guilty actress caught mid-scene. Her laugh had stopped mid-sentence. The room still echoed with other people's laughter, but she was standing still, locked onto me like I had just risen from the grave. In a way, I had. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not with her. Not with the woman beside me. But there I was, walking into the same party my wife had begged me not to attend, arm in arm with her boyfriend's wife. Her real problem wasn't just that I showed up. It was who I showed up with. You'd think the worst part was walking in and seeing your wife in another man's arms. But no. The worst part was seeing how relaxed she looked. How comfortable. Like she didn't have a husband at home. Like she didn't just kiss me goodbye 3 hours earlier with the same mouth that whispered, "I love you." She wasn't hiding it anymore. Her hand was on his chest. His hand was somewhere lower. And that was before she saw us. Me and the woman she didn't know I had spoken to. Me and the woman whose marriage she had bulldozed in silence. Me and Mallory, Tyler's wife. The other betrayed half of their dirty little fantasy. Mallory didn't say a word. She just smiled. A tight, icy smile that somehow said everything. We didn't even need a confrontation. The room was already shifting. Conversations paused. Forks hovered above plates. I heard one guy whisper, "Wait, isn't that?" before his friend elbowed him silent. Vanessa finally took a breath. She looked down at the broken glass, then up at me, and then she laughed. A hollow, awkward laugh that tried to pretend nothing was wrong. I wish the story ended there. But it didn't. Because that night wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about exposing her. It was about discovering just how deep the lies went, and what she had really done behind my back. And Mallory, well, she wasn't there just to make a scene. She was there to burn the entire fantasy down. I hadn't planned any of it. Mallory did. She was the one who reached out, who tracked me down after reading one of Vanessa's public posts. I could have left quietly, she told me that night, 2 days before the party. But why should they get to pretend we don't exist? We met in the back corner of a diner just outside of town. Mallory was calm, calculated, like someone who had already played every possible scenario in her head and chosen the one that would cause the deepest emotional rupture. I was still trying to keep my hands from shaking as I stirred cold coffee. She pushed her phone toward me with photos already queued up. My wife's face, Tyler's hands. Hotels. Car kisses. A beach trip she said was a wellness retreat. They weren't hiding. Not really. They just thought we were too weak to find out. Or too dull to put the pieces together. "You can back out," she said. "But I'm going." Maybe I should have said no. Maybe I should have stayed home and mourned in private like the weak, passive guy Vanessa always made me feel like. But something in Mallory's eyes, not rage, not pain, but control, made me want to follow through. Not to hurt Vanessa, but to finally reclaim the version of myself I'd lost somewhere between her cold glances and one-sided conversations. The plan was simple. Arrive halfway through the party, just when everyone was loosened by drinks and illusions. Walk in together, dress like a couple, and don't say a word. Let them figure it out. Let the truth rise, ugly and exposed, under the soft lighting and jazz playlist. But no plan survives contact with reality. As we stood there in that frozen moment, all eyes on us, Vanessa did something I didn't expect. She walked toward me. Not fast, not flustered. Slow. Measured. Her heels clicking against the tiles like a countdown. "Curtis," she said, her voice tight with artificial warmth. "What are you doing here?" Before I could speak, Mallory let go of my arm and stepped forward. "He came with me," she said, staring directly at Tyler, whose face had gone gray. It was like lighting a match in a dry forest. Gasps. Awkward shuffling. A server nearly dropped a tray. And then Tyler opened his mouth to respond, but Vanessa cut him off. "You need to leave," she said, eyes on me now, voice trembling. "This isn't the place." "Funny," I replied, my voice cracking. "I thought you lived here now." Mallory turned to the crowd. "You all might want to hear this, especially those of you doing business with them. I've got a few pictures that might change how you feel about your hosts." Then came the flash drive. She pulled it from her purse like a magician finishing her act and handed it to the DJ. That was never part of the plan. I looked at her, stunned. But she only said, "Curtis, you deserve to know everything." So do they? And just like that, the screen lit up, and the party burned. At first, people thought it was part of the evening's entertainment. The screen on the far wall flickered to life, interrupting the soft jazz and ambient candlelight, and the crowd turned with half-smiles and cocktails raised. But those smiles didn't last. The first image was blurry, taken from a distance. Vanessa and Tyler walking hand in hand down a boardwalk, sunglasses on, matching beach towels in their arms. Innocent enough, if you didn't know, Vanessa had told me she was attending a grief workshop for a co-worker's father that same weekend. The second photo wasn't so innocent. It was them again, but this time in a hotel bar. Tyler's hand on the inside of her thigh, her lips at his ear, his mouth parted in that hungry way I hadn't seen on my wife's face in years. Whispers started to ripple. Someone near the back laughed, awkward and sharp, like he wasn't sure if it was a prank or blackmail. The third image was the one that made the air snap. Vanessa in her red coat, the one I bought her for Christmas, straddling Tyler's lap in the front seat of a car I didn't recognize. They weren't kissing. They weren't hiding. It was raw, intimate, and entirely damning. That's when someone pulled the music plug. The room fell silent. I could hear every uncomfortable breath. Vanessa finally moved, but not toward me. She lunged toward the DJ booth, nearly knocking over a centerpiece in her heels. "Turn it off," she screamed, her voice high and unfamiliar, panicked in a way I'd never seen. The DJ looked like he'd been handed a live grenade. "Do it," she shrieked again, and this time, she slammed her palm on the table, yanking the USB out of the port. But the damage had been done. Tyler had disappeared, literally vanished from her side the moment the second photo appeared. I didn't see him slip out, but someone whispered, "He bolted." Mallory stood beside me, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. I wasn't sure if she was satisfied or empty. Maybe both. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel strong. I felt exhausted. Vanessa looked at me, then, her lipstick smudged, her hands trembling. "Why would you do this to me?" she whispered like I was the villain in her story. And I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. All of it. The lies. The sneaking around. The way she still believed she was the one being betrayed. "You did this to yourself," I said quietly. But the night wasn't over. Because when I turned to Mallory, ready to thank her or say something, anything, she wasn't smiling anymore. Her face had shifted, and when she leaned in and whispered, "Curtis, there's something I didn't tell you," my stomach dropped. The air was still thick with tension when Mallory leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said, eyes locked on Vanessa, who was now crouched on the floor gathering the scattered shards of her dignity. "It's about Tyler and your wife. This wasn't just some casual affair." I froze. My brain was still trying to process what had already happened. The photos, the whispers, the look on Vanessa's face when the crowd saw her for who she really was. And now this? They weren't planning to run away together, Mallory continued, her voice calm, but flat. Not in the romantic way you think. They were planning to ruin you. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ruin me? What does that even mean? She didn't blink. Tyler works for your company's competitor, right? 2 months ago, Vanessa started sending him your work files, your presentations, sales projections, strategy notes. Tyler used it all. That beach trip? It was a drop-off. I took a step back, cold creeping over my skin like ice water running down my spine. You're saying my wife was spying on me? For him? More like selling you out, Mallory said, her tone shifting into something dangerously close to pity. You're up for a promotion. A big one. Vanessa made sure you wouldn't get it. Tyler wanted your job to fail, and she gave him everything he needed. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Everything inside me screamed for denial. Vanessa wasn't ambitious. She never cared about my job. She once told me business talk bored her to death. But then I remembered the random questions she'd asked during dinner, the way she suddenly took an interest in what I was working on, the nights she insisted I leave my laptop open because she wanted to read while I slept. It had all been part of the game. I looked across the room at her. She was standing now, smiling weakly at people she once called friends, trying to pretend her whole world wasn't crumbling in front of everyone. She hadn't noticed I was still watching. She didn't know that her final betrayal had just been dragged into the light. I turned to Mallory, unsure what to feel. anger, gratitude, maybe both. But before I could speak, a man in a dark blazer approached us, hesitated, then handed me a folded napkin. "From Tyler," he said quietly. On the napkin was a number, a hotel room, and one sentence written in rushed handwriting. "If you want to know the real reason she did it, meet me alone." I held that napkin like it was radioactive. Room 814. A scrawled number and one sentence that felt more like a threat than an invitation. "If you want to know the real reason she did it, meet me alone." I stared at it so long the ink smudged slightly under my fingers. Mallory stood beside me, arms folded, watching the people at the party try to salvage the remains of their evening. I didn't tell her what was on the napkin. I didn't need to. She could read my face. "Are you going to go?" she asked without looking at me. "I don't know," I whispered. But I did. I already knew I was going. It was stupid. It was dangerous. It was everything I never was. But if there was even a 1% chance that Tyler had a piece of the puzzle that Mallory didn't, I couldn't walk away without hearing it. I needed closure, or something close to it. I left the party in silence, slipping out while Vanessa was distracted, wrapped in a conversation with two women who probably weren't even looking her in the eye anymore. I didn't tell her goodbye. I didn't tell anyone. I just walked straight to my car with the napkin clenched in my hand like a confession. The hotel wasn't far. A mid-tier business place with cold lighting and bland carpets. The kind of place no one asks questions. I found the room easily. 814 at the end of the hallway, light from under the door like a warning. I stood outside it for longer than I care to admit. My hand hovered over the handle. I didn't knock. I didn't even breathe. Then the door creaked open from the inside. Tyler stood there. No jacket. Tie loosened. Hair messy. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Or maybe someone who realized everything he'd built was about to collapse. He didn't smile. He didn't say anything at first. Just stepped aside and let me in. The room was quiet except for the low hum of a mini fridge. I didn't sit. He didn't offer. "What do you want?" I asked finally, my voice low. He looked at me with something that almost resembled guilt. "You think she did all this for me?" he said. "Curtis, I didn't even ask for it. Your wife, she offered everything. From the start." "What are you saying?" He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "She hated you long before I ever touched her." I flinched. Not physically, but deep inside. That sentence cracked something open in me I didn't even know was sealed. "She said you made her feel small. Invisible. Like she was fading in her own house," he added. I shook my head. "I did everything for her." "I know," Tyler said. "That's why she couldn't stand it." I stared at him, trying to make sense of the poison dripping from every word. "She didn't cheat because she was in love," he said finally. "She cheated because it made her feel powerful again." And with that, I realized this wasn't about him. It was never about him. It was about me. I left that hotel room feeling like someone had cracked open my ribs and scraped everything out. Tyler didn't beg for forgiveness. He didn't act proud either. He just told the truth, like someone finally tired of hiding. There was no screaming, no punches, just the quiet horror of realization. I thought the betrayal was the worst part, but hearing why she did it, that unraveled me in a different way. I drove home in silence, headlights cutting through the darkness like questions I didn't know how to answer. Every red light felt longer than the last. I didn't play music. I didn't cry. I just sat there in my own skin, wondering how I missed all of it. Vanessa was home when I walked in. Alone. The party must have ended early after the scandal exploded, or maybe she ran the second I left. The house smelled like her perfume and whatever lies she was still holding on to. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, in that same black dress, no makeup, hair a mess, holding a glass of water like she wasn't sure if it would help or drown her. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't look defensive. She looked hollow. "I didn't expect you to come back," she said softly. I stood in the doorway for a long time. I wasn't going to, but Tyler left me something. Her lip twitched, just barely. "Let me guess. He told you it was all my idea." I didn't reply. She set the glass down and stood. Good. Because it was. That hit harder than I expected. Not just because it was true, but because she admitted it so easily. Like it didn't hurt her to say it. "I knew what I was doing, Curtis," she went on, stepping toward me like her words weren't setting the room on fire. "I knew you'd never suspect anything. You'd just keep showing up. Keep loving me. Even when I didn't deserve it." "You did it for him?" I asked, my voice cracking. She shook her head. "No. I did it for me." And just like Tyler said, it was never about love, never about passion or revenge. It was about control, about rediscovering a piece of herself that I didn't know she missed. She wasn't crying. I think I wanted her to cry. I wanted her to show some sliver of regret, some crack in the armor. But she just looked at me like she was finally free of pretending. Then why stay? I asked. Why come home to me every night? Why keep up the lie? Vanessa's answer was worse than anything I could have imagined. Because I knew you wouldn't leave, she said. You're safe, predictable, and I didn't think you had it in you to walk away. That moment didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like humiliation. She'd studied me like a map. She'd used my loyalty as a weapon. And she was right. Until now, I hadn't walked away. But she miscalculated one thing. I still had the USB drive, and I hadn't used everything on it yet. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, the USB drive between my fingers like a detonator. Vanessa went to bed like nothing had happened, like her confessions were just some overdue conversation we could leave behind. The casual cruelty of it haunted me more than the affair itself. I replayed her words over and over in my head. I didn't think you had it in you to walk away. The way she said it, calm and final, like she wasn't just ending a chapter, but erasing me from her story entirely. Around 4 a.m., I opened the files again. Mallory had given me more than just pictures. There were voice recordings, muffled hotel conversations, clipped audio of Vanessa speaking in coded but damning language. There was one video I hadn't watched yet. I hovered over it for a while, then clicked play. Vanessa was sitting across from Tyler in what looked like a restaurant booth. It was dated 2 weeks before our anniversary. She was laughing, genuinely laughing, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in years. Tyler leaned in and whispered something that made her eyes gleam, and then she said it. Don't worry. Once I know Curtis is out of the running for the promotion, I'll cut it off clean. He won't even see it coming. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was humiliated. She had used me like a pawn, and I had let her. I was the nice guy, the safe bet, the soft place to land after she played in the fire. I had no more tears left for her. Only silence. And a plan. Later that morning, I sent one email. No subject line. No text. Just the USB files, sent directly to my boss and the head of our department's security division. I didn't include a message because I didn't need to. The evidence would speak louder than I ever could. Vanessa woke up around 9. She walked into the kitchen wearing one of my old t-shirts like the night before hadn't shifted the ground beneath us. She poured herself coffee, glanced at me, and said, "You're up early." I just looked at her. Didn't speak. She must have felt the shift because her smile faltered. "Curtis?" she asked, setting her mug down. I stood. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said 5 words that made her face finally lose color. I sent the files in. She blinked. "What files?" "The ones you gave Tyler. The ones you said were harmless. The ones that just cost you your reputation and maybe your career." Her mug slipped in her hand and cracked against the counter. "You're bluffing." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You said I'd never walk away. But you forgot. I can also burn bridges." She stared at me in disbelief. But behind it, I saw fear. And for once, it wasn't mine. Vanessa didn't scream. She didn't chase after me. She just stood there, mouth slightly open, frozen like the moment she saw me walk into that party with Mallory. The difference was, this time, I wasn't the one caught off guard. She was. She finally realized the version of me she thought she knew was gone. The Curtis who begged for attention, who looked the other way, who made excuses for everything. He died the second she admitted she never thought I'd leave. I didn't wait for fallout. I didn't need to see her scramble or spin the truth. I packed a single bag that morning, emailed my resignation, and left my wedding ring on the kitchen table next to the cracked coffee mug. No yelling. No notes. Just silence. Mallory and I spoke once more, just enough to say thank you. We didn't become friends. We didn't ride off into some poetic closure. We both had our own healing to do, and we respected that. But I'll always be grateful to her for showing me the truth, even when it hurt like hell. 3 weeks later, I was living in a small studio apartment across town, barely furnished, but quiet. Peaceful. For the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts. I started sleeping again, reading again. I went out for long walks without checking my phone every 10 minutes. I stopped wondering what I wasn't being told behind my back. I stopped apologizing for simply existing. I even got a call from corporate. Apparently, someone higher up had reviewed the files I sent. Turns out, not only did Vanessa compromise company data, she tried to position herself as a whistleblower to cover her own tracks. It didn't work. She was fired. Tyler, too. Quietly. No public drama, just a silent, professional takedown. The kind that hurts more because no one says a word. Her LinkedIn went blank a week later. I won't pretend it made me feel better. This was never about revenge. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Closure. A clean break from a life built on illusions. I've started writing again, just privately. Little reflections, things I never said out loud when I should have. I've even met new people. I'm not rushing anything. I'm learning to be whole again before offering pieces of myself to someone else. Vanessa was wrong about one thing. I did walk away. And it turns out, I didn't lose anything. I gained myself back. Thanks for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If you made it this far, here's your turn. Which moment shocked you the most? Was it the USB reveal, the hotel confession, or something Vanessa said that hit too close to home? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that uncover the secrets hiding in plain sight.